Hey guys, in this video we're going to go through the 2020 Mathematics Standard 2 trial paper from Hunters Hill High School. It's a 2.5 hour exam, 10 minutes reading time, divided into two sections. Your first section is multiple choice worth 15 marks, so 1 mark for each multiple choice question, and you have to give yourself about 20-25 minutes for this section. And then the remaining time, so about 2 hours, 5 minutes for section 2, which is your short answer questions. Let's get into it. Right, so let's get into it. Question 1. A set of data has the following scores. What is the mode? So your mode is your most occurring score. And looking at that, okay, this is great. It's in ascending order. So I've got 113, got 315, 121. Okay, then these are all, this is another grouped one, the rest are all singular. So I can see that my mode is 15. Which of the following expresses the ratio 8 to 20 in simplest form? Quite straightforward. I'm going to have to see what number goes into both 8 and 20, and that is 4. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4, and you get 2 to 5, which is C. Now you may have found yourself, if you had recognized that 2 goes into both numbers, that's also correct. So if you divided both sides by 2, you would get 4 to 10, which is actually an option. Now 4 to 10 is correct. 2 to 5 is correct. But what we want is the simplest form. Okay, and so that's why part A is not correct. Okay, and it's 2 to 5. Gina invests $8,000 for 1 year and 3 months at a rate of 6% per annum simple interest. What is the total value of the investment at the end of this period? Now, in this case, I'm after what my investment is going to turn into. So that's my principal plus my interest. So using, so I've got my principal is $8,000. Just like to write these down. My rate is 6% per annum. But in this case, Gina invests for 1 year and 3 months. So N is 1 year and 3/12. Okay, this 3 months here represented as a fraction as 3/12, which is 1/4. So it's 1.25. So your interest, using your simple interest formula, here, I've got it's 8,000 times 6% times 1.25. Plug that in onto your calculator and you get $600. So therefore your total value is 8,000 plus the 600. Question 4. What is the degree of vertex B in this diagram? Okay, so this one is really easy. So here's B. Let's have a look. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Answer is A. Question 5. The graph shows a scatter plot for a set of data. Which of the following values is the most appropriate Pearson's correlation coefficient of this data? Now we know when it's very strong, it's either 1 or -1, so they're very strong. Okay, and obviously if it's positive correlation, negative, it's negative correlation. Now I can see that I am negatively sloped here. So it's definitely not B, okay, because I'm concerned with negative values. And it's definitely not A, because this does not look strong. So no matter how I am going to draw this line of best fit, okay, that's as best as I can do it for now. Do you see how it doesn't actually, the points aren't super close to it? Okay, so it's definitely not -1, but they're also not so far spread out, okay, that it's -0.35. So I would say it has a moderate negative relationship, which is D. Question 6. What is the equation of the line shown in the diagram? Okay, so how I like to go about this is first I'll write y equals mx plus b. I'll first determine what my y-intercept is. So my y-intercept, which is b, in this case is right over here, it's -1. So now I have y is equal to mx minus 1. Now I need to determine the gradient, okay? And I'm going to choose 2 points that lie on this line, and there are an infinite possibility of points that you can choose, but I'm going to choose the easiest ones. And what I mean by easiest is points that I can 100% confirm they pass through. So I actually will use my y-intercept, and I'll use this one here. I'll draw up a little triangle, and I can see that my rise over here is 3 and my run is 1. Another thing I can determine is that this is negatively sloped. Okay, remember this way is positive and this way is negative. So my gradient in this example is definitely going to be a minus your rise over your run. So it's minus 3 over 1, which is minus 3. So therefore my equation is y is equal to minus 3x minus 1, which is A. Question 7. The cost of a calculator including 10% GST is $24.20. Calculate the GST. So this means the $24.20 is made up of the original price plus GST, which is 110%. I'm going to use the unitary method, and I'll do $24.20, which is equivalent to 110%. I'll just write this out separate. I'm now going to find out what the equivalent of 1% is, so I'll divide by 110, which is 22 cents. And then to find 100%, which is the original amount, oh no, actually this question doesn't want the original amount, it wants GST, and GST is 10%, so I want to find what 10% is. Now I'll multiply the 22 cents by 10, which is $2.20. B. Question 8. Which of the following correctly expresses y as the subject of the formula? Okay, so I've got 5x minus 2y plus 4 is equal to 0. So I want to bring everything over to one. I want y on its own on one side and everything else on the other. What I will do is I will move that over to this side just to make it positive. So now I've got 5x plus 4 is equal to 2y. Now, what do I need to do between this? What do I need to do to get rid of that 2? Well, I'll need to divide by 2 because between the 2 and the y is a time. So I'm going to divide everything by 2. So now you have 5x plus 4 all over 2 is equal to y. Now let's have a look and see which one that is. Okay, it's definitely not C or D. I know they're the ones that look most like it. But it's a 2 here, not a 4. Okay, so I don't want you to feel like, oh my god, maybe I've actually done something wrong and it actually is C or D. Okay, no. What we can do with this fraction is we can actually split this up. This could also represent 5x over 2 plus 4 over 2 equals y, which is 5x over 2 plus 2 equals y. Okay, looking at that, is that A or B? It is A. Question 9. Pat lives in Sydney, UTC plus 10, and Freya lives in Seattle, UTC minus 8. Determine the time and day in Sydney if it is 10 p.m. on Thursday at Seattle. So, from here, we know that Sydney, I always like to draw these out. Sydney is 8 hours ahead, so this is Sydney. And then Seattle, oh, sorry about that, it's 10 hours ahead. Sydney is 10 hours ahead and Seattle is 8 hours behind. Okay, that means there is a total time difference of 18 hours, where we would say Sydney is 18 hours ahead of Seattle or Seattle is 18 hours behind Sydney. Determine the time and day in Sydney if it is 10 p.m. on Thursday at Seattle. Okay, so if it's 10 p.m. Thursday, Seattle, I need to add 18 hours. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 12 hours. This brings it to 10 a.m. on a Friday in Sydney, but I still need to add another 6 hours to bring it to 18. Okay, so this brings it to 4 p.m. still Friday, Sydney, which is C. Question 10. Bilal drives a car with a petrol consumption of 22 litres of fuel per 100 kilometres. The gas tank of the car has a capacity of 40 litres. If Bilal is driving a distance of 870 kilometres, how many fuel tanks of petrol will he need to reach his destination? Okay, so we know that he needs 22 litres for every 100 kilometres, but his tank can only fill 40 litres. Now he has a journey of 870 kilometres. Let's first find out how much fuel consumption he'll need. So for fuel consumption, so I'm going to do 870 divided by 100, which is 8.7. So therefore, for fuel consumption, it's going to be 8.7 times 22, which is 191.4 litres. He needs 191.4 litres for the entire journey. Now, his petrol tank can only fill up 40 litres. So how many tanks of fuel does he need? He needs 191.4 divided by 40, which is 4.785. Now, in determining is that 4 or 5 tanks of fuel, it's okay. Question 11. The network diagram shows the weighted edges in meters connecting various vertices. What is the shortest distance from A to D? Okay, so let's do a few. So I've got, if I went down this path here, so if I did A, G, H, D, you get 16. What if I went, what if I went what if I went A to H to D? So A, H, D, that's 11. Let's see, so definitely not going to be this one. Actually, how about I leave them there just so I can mark off the paths that I've done. If I go 4, so if I went down 4, 3, 1, 6, 6, no, 2. Oh, what if I went 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11? Cool, that's also really short. So A, G, H, F, C, D, that's also 11. If I go on the outer, that's 13, that's too much. What if I went 12? No. Here, if I went to B to E, no, that's too much. Okay, so it's 11. Question 12. Which of the following is not covered by comprehensive car insurance in an accident? So for comprehensive car insurance, that's the insurance covered for a car, for damage caused by another car or your car. Okay, it does not cover third-party insurance, so that's injury to somebody else, that's your green slip. So in this case, it just has to do with any damage caused to a car. So let's have a look. Injury to the other driver? No, it doesn't. Damage to the other driver's car? Yes, it does. Repairs your own car? Yes, it does. And the cost for the repairs. Okay, so which one is not covered? It's injury to another driver. That's your green slip. 13. The height of a door is measured to be 2.1 meters, correct to the nearest 10 centimeter. What is the absolute value of this error? So I know it's been rounded to the nearest 10 centimeters. So my error is going to be half of this. So your error is going to be plus minus half of 10 centimeters, which is plus minus 5 centimeters, but it wants it in meters, so it's going to be plus minus 0.05 D. Question 14. Which of the following would give the correct value for the area of a triangle? Okay, so I've been given all 3 sides here, but in order to determine the area of a non-right angled triangle, it's half AB sine C. But this angle C is the angle bound by the 2 known sides. So I've got a side that has been known, and that's the angle bound in the middle. Okay, so it's going to be half times 2.4 times 2.5 sine 50, which is B. Question 15. The graph below is used to illustrate the value of currency between euro and the Australian dollar. Okay, use the graph to convert 340 Australian dollars to euros. Okay, so what I'm going to do is determine, 340 Australian. Okay, so I'm going to have to determine an equation on the line here and then sub that in because it's extrapolated data. So I could extend this line, but it's too difficult. Okay, so let's formulate the equation. I'm going to use these 2 points to determine the gradient. So similar to the steps that we did before. And I can see that triangle here. So my gradient, which is rise over run, and in this case, it is a positive slope. So my rise, I go rise by 30, run by 50. So my gradient is 3/5, and my y-intercept is 0. So your equation is the euro is equal to 3/5 of an Australian dollar. Okie dokes, so knowing that, let's sub in 3. So when the Australian dollar is equal to 340, we get 3/5 of 340, and we get $204. 204 pounds. Okay. Which is D. Okay, question 16. We're now up to the short answer section. A candle is in the shape of a cone with a radius of 6 centimeters and a perpendicular height of 15. What is the volume of the candle correct to the nearest cubic meter? Well, the volume of a cone is 1/3 AH, where your A is the area of the base, okay, which in this case is your circle, so pi r squared. So it's going to be 1/3 times pi r, we know what r is, times pi times 6 squared times pi r squared, pi r squared times the height, which is 15. Plug that all into your calculator and you get 565 cubic centimeter because we want it to the nearest cubic centimeter. Okay, question 17. I've got 4 plus 7x over 8 minus 1 is equal to 3. I want to solve the equation, so just do BODMAS in reverse. And we get 4 plus 7x over 8 is equal to 4. I'm now going to multiply by 8. I've got 4 plus 7x is equal to 32. Move the 4 over to the other side, so subtracting 4, 7x is equal to 28. Divide by 7, x is equal to 4. Question 20. Mary recorded the time in seconds it takes her to run 100 meters on 10 separate occasions. Her times are shown below. Great, they're in ascending order, so I don't have to rearrange them. Part A. Find the first quartile and the third quartile of the data values. So my median is going to occur here between the 5th and 6th number, and I just determine that by doing n plus 1 over 2. Okay, so between the 5th and 6th. So this is Q2, my median. I now want to determine Q1, which is really the median of my lower quartile, and Q3 is my median of my upper quartile. I can see it's those ones there. So Q1 is equal to 12, Q3 is equal to 15. Is Mary's time of 23 seconds considered an outlier? Now what I need to do here is first determine my interquartile range, which is 15 minus 12, which is equal to 3. I'm going to plug it into this formula, which is also provided for you on your formula sheet. So Q3 plus 1.5 times my interquartile range. If 23 is greater than whatever I get here as my outcome, then it is an outlier. So let's plug what we know. So Q3 is 15 plus 1.5 times 3, and we get 19.5. So that means 23 is an outlier since 23 is greater than 19.5. Okay, and it's really important to show the marker that you understand that there. Question 21. A 3400 watt air conditioner is used to cool a room. The air conditioner is used for a duration of 105 minutes. The electricity costs 35.82 cents per kilowatt hour. Calculate the cost of electricity to cool the room in this time. The first thing I'm going to do is convert a few of these into different units. So for the 3400 watts, I'm going to change it to 3.4 kilowatts. 105 minutes in hours is 105 divided by 60, which is 1.75 hours. And then I'm going to change this cents into dollars. And I'm going to use that. So now I've got my consumption is 3.4 kilowatts over 1.75 hours, which is, so I'm going to use 5.95 kilowatts, and then the cost is going to be your 5.95 times 35.82 cents, or $0.3582, and that leaves me with $2.13 to the nearest cent. Question 22. A venue can host a musical event for 150 people. The cost for the venue to host an event will initially cost $400 and a further $5 for each person attending. The cost C in dollars can be represented by this equation. Now that makes sense. Have a look. It's my initial cost of $400 plus $5 for every person. The venue charges $15 a person. The graph below is a model used to help the venue make financial decisions for hosting an event. What does the line L represent on the graph? Okay, that's this line here. And that one is your income. Okay, so you can say your income or money earned for every person attending. You could even go one further and actually state what the equation is, where your income is simply $15 times the number of people. So income is equal to 15N. Part B, explain the significance of the point where the two lines intersect. So they're concerned with this point here. It's worth 1 mark, so it's very important to use your keywords. It's the break even point, but it's asking you to explain the significance where your cost is equal to the income. Now you need to be careful. I've seen some students write things like, at this point, profit starts to get made. It's really not at that point that profit starts to get made. I'm literally making no money, but I'm not losing anything either at that particular point. Okay, so it's after this point that I start to make profit. So I think just give the definition, as it's a break-even point where your cost is equal to the income. Part C, using the graph or otherwise find the loss if only 20 people attend. Now I can use the graph and I go up here to 20 people and I find that difference, but because I can't tell what it is exactly, I personally would use the equation. Okay, now it's funny because I never ever use the or otherwise method, but just because there is such a wide gap in values, there's 100 units, okay, 200 units between each of these increments, that I don't want it to be an estimate, so I'd rather be certain. So in this case, I know my income is 15N and my cost is 400 plus 5N. So when N is equal to 20, let's determine each of those. Your income is going to be 15 times 20, which is $300. And then your cost is going to be 400 plus 5 times 20, which is $500. So therefore, you're going to have a loss Your loss is determined, by the way, by doing your cost minus your income. So 500 minus 300, which is $200. Question 23. The network diagram shows the cost in thousands of dollars to connect the internet cables between various access points. Draw the minimum spanning tree in the space provided. Now, I do recommend that you have a pen, a colored pen that can be rubbed out, so that when you are tracing these lines, if you make a mistake, you can just go back and rub out that line. Obviously, you can use your lead pencil, but I just find the lead pencil isn't eye-popping enough. If you were to actually use a colored pen or a highlighter, you do risk, like if you highlighted, say, this line here, but oh no, you're meant to highlight this one instead. You see how it starts to get really confusing to determine which one you actually meant and which one you didn't? So that's just a tip from me. But just be careful that with that pen, that colored pen that can be rubbed out, you don't go ahead and do the rest of your working out in it. They actually want you to use the non-rub out pens in your exam. So just be careful of that as well. Okay, so I want to determine the minimum spanning tree. I'm going to use Prim's algorithm where I just choose any point, and the idea is so in this case, for example, I'm going to go along 10, I choose the shortest edge, and now between vertex A and vertex B, I try and determine which is the shortest edge coming out of both of those. So amongst those two, it's 11. Now I'm dealing with vertex A, vertex B, and vertex F. Which is the shortest edge coming out of any one of those three? It is 8. Okay, and so on and so forth. So I'll just quickly complete that. Okay, so that's my minimum spanning tree, but they are asking me to draw it. So again, I'll quickly do that in the box below. Now this wouldn't get you the full 3 marks. You may get 1 mark, but you must label every single one of the vertices and mark the weights on the edges, okay, for you to get the full 3 marks. Great. Okay, then it's asking to use the spanning tree to determine the minimum amount that must be spent to connect all the access points. Well, your total weight is adding up all of those there. So it's your 10 plus 11 plus 8 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3 plus 7, and you get 46. However, it's not going to cost me $46 to connect. If I go back to the question, the weights on the edges are in the thousands of dollars. So it's actually going to cost me 46 times 1,000. So it's going to cost me $46,000 to connect. So be careful with the question like that. Question 24. A person purchases 800 shares with the market value of $3.25 a share. There is a brokerage fee of 2% of the total purchase price. Calculate the brokerage fee to be paid for the purchasing shares. Okay, so I'm just after the brokerage fee. I have to determine first how much I actually spent to buy all those shares. So the cost of shares is 800 times $3.25, which is, plug that into your calculator, $2,600. So therefore your brokerage fee, notice how I'm describing what I'm doing in each of the steps. So your brokerage fee is therefore 2,600 times 2%. Once again, plug that into your calculator and you get $52. Part B. The shares are sold for a value of $4 a share. Calculate the profit made if there was no brokerage fee. Okay, so from part A, my total cost, let's first determine how much my total cost is. It's obviously going to be the $2,600 plus $52, so $2,652. I'm now going to sell at $4 each, and how many shares did I have? It was 800 shares, so I'm now selling it for $3,200. For selling it for $3,200 does not include any brokerage fee, so my profit is simply going to be your selling price minus your cost price, which is 3,200 minus 2,652, which is $548. Part C, calculate the percentage dividend yield for selling the shares at $4 a share. So for your dividend yield, it's going to be, that increase in value over the market price. So we had initially purchased it for $3.25. Its market price now is $4. So that increased in 75 cents in value. I now divide it by the market price, times it by 100 to get it as a percentage. Okay, and you get, after plugging that into your calculator, 0.1875, which is 18.75%. Question 25. Simon borrowed $350,000 to buy an apartment. The repayments were set by the bank at $6,000 a quarter for 20 years. What is the total amount that is to be paid for this loan over the 20 years? Okay, this is so straightforward. I'm just calculating how much I paid up over the life of the loan. So every quarter I'm paying $6,000, and there are 4 quarters in a year. Okay, so over 20 years, I am making 20 times 4, which is 80 contributions. Or let's actually use I'm making 80 repayments. Okay, now each repayment is $6,000, so I'm going to make a total repayment of 6,000 times 80, which is $480,000. Okay, so I know the loan was for $350,000, but I'm paying back over 20 years $480,000 worth, which means there's a fair amount of interest there. And your interest in part B, it's asking, calculate the interest, is obviously going to be the difference. Okay, so your interest is going to be $480,000 minus $350,000, which is $130,000. Part C. The interest rate of the loan is 4% per annum, compounded quarterly. The loan balance table below shows the interest charged and the balance owing for the first 2 quarters. Okay, the first thing I'm going to have to do is first convert this rate. Because it stands at 4% per annum, I need to change it to a quarterly rate, which is 1% per quarter. Okay, so I just divided that by 4. And now, so we need to determine A. So A is your interest, and we need to do 300. So before I get into it, let's just break this table down. I initially borrowed $350,000. I calculate 1% of $350,000, and it is $3,500. I then make a repayment of $6,000, and I get this amount as the balance at the end. So what happens is I add the interest and I subtract the repayment to get $347,500. So to determine A, I need to find out 1% of $347,500, and you get $3,475. Okay, so for A is $3,475, and then for B, it's going to be your $347,500 plus your interest minus the repayment. Okay, and you get $344,975. So you just have to make sure that B is always going to be like as an indicator, okay, so that you know if you're on the right track or not. B obviously must be less than what you initially owe. Question 26. The formula below is used to calculate an estimate for a blood alcohol content for males, and this is the formula here, where N is the number of hours required for a person to reach 0 blood alcohol content after they stop consuming alcohol. Oh, sorry. The number of hours required for a person to reach 0 blood alcohol content after they stop consuming alcohol is used by this formula. Okay, now usually they actually describe what each of these indicate, but you should know that your N represents your number of hours. Sorry. N represents your number of standard drinks. H is the number of hours of consuming the alcohol. And M is the mass or the weight of the person. Okay, now Jordan weighs 80 kilograms and he is drinking low alcohol beer. It is indicated on the label that each alcohol beer has 0.7 of a standard drink. Jordan consumes 5 bottles of these low alcohol beers over a period of 3 hours. He then stopped drinking alcohol. Show that his blood alcohol content at the end of this period is approximately 0.02. Okay, so in this case, he consumes 5 0.7 standard drinks. So let's determine for the number. So N is equal to the number of standard drinks is given by 5 times 0.7, because each standard drink has a blood alcohol content of it's a number of standard drinks of 0.7, so that is 3.5, and then H is 3 and M is 80. Let's plug that in to our formula, and we've got blood alcohol content for a male is 10 times 3.5 minus 7.5 times 3 all over 6.8 times 80. Plug that into your calculator and you get 0.023 and so on, which is approximately 0.02. Part B, if Jordan's blood alcohol content is 0.02, calculate the time it will take for him to reach blood alcohol content of 0. Express your answer in hours and minutes. So that formula is time is equal to blood alcohol content divided by 0.015. Now we know his blood alcohol content is approximately 0.02, so it's going to be 0.02 over 0.015, and you get 1.333 and so on. But in hours and minutes, you can just press the hours and minutes button on your calculator and it would convert that over to 1 hour and 20 minutes. Question 27. Lisa is completing her tax return. She has a gross income of $92,500. In addition, income also comes from an investment totaling $3,000. Lisa is required to purchase equipment for her job. She's claiming $8,500 in allowable tax deductions. Determine Lisa's taxable income. So her taxable income is going to be her gross income minus any allowable deductions. Okay, which is her gross income is her $92,500 plus her investments minus the deductions, and her deductions total to $8,500. So her taxable income is $87,000. Now we need to determine what her tax is. She falls in this bracket over here. So the tax, let's first determine, she has to now pay $3,572 plus 32.5 cents for every dollar over 37 grand. So that means her tax payable is $3,572 plus 32.5 cents for every dollar over 37 grand. So 87,000 minus 37,000. So that difference there times it by the 32.5 cents. And we get $19,822. That's how much tax she needs to pay. Question 28. A bag contains 9 blue lollies and 7 green lollies. Georgia takes out a lolly from the bag without looking and eats it. She then takes out another lolly without looking and eats it. What is the probability of Georgia choosing a blue lolly in her first selection? Well, this is straightforward. If there are a total, we've got 9 blue, 7 green, there are a total of 16 lollies. What is the chance of her just selecting a blue? And it is 9 out of 16. The next part, by drawing a tree diagram or otherwise, find the probability that Georgia eats 2 lollies of different colours. Express your answer as a fraction or correct to 3 decimal places. So let's draw this tree diagram. Do they give us space down here? Yep. So once again, we have got 9 blue and 7 green. Is that correct? 9 blue and 7 green. So I can either select a blue or a green on first selection. And the probability of me picking a blue would be 9 on 16, and the probability of picking a green will be 7 on 16 for first selection. Remember, each one of these branches must total to 1. And you can tell that 9 over 16 plus 7 over 16 is 16 over 16, which is 1. So that's correct. Now my second selection, I could either select a blue or a green here, or a blue or a green. So this is my second selection. Now that if I'm following this trail here, okay, this one in bold. So if I selected a blue, that means I only have, and I'm just going to write it down below these branches. You're not meant to, but I'll just do it for a guide and then I'll rub it out. This means I've got 8 blues left, but I still have 7 greens. So now my chance of picking a blue is 8 out of 15, and here 7 out of 15. Okay, so if you want to write this down underneath your branches as a guide, it could help. Go for it. And then over here, if I've now selected a green first, I still have 9 blues, but I only have 6 greens left. Okay, so I still have 15 to choose from, but now there are 9 out of 15 here and 6 out of 15 to choose. So my outcomes are blue, blue. Oh my goodness. Sorry guys, so that's a green. Blue, green. Green, blue, green, green. Sorry, even when I was calculating this, it was always for it being a green. I just wrote that down wrong. So we want to find out what the probability is if she picks a different color each time. So therefore, I am interested with these 2 selections. So I want to determine the probability of blue, green plus the probability of green, blue. And the probability of blue, green is 9 out of 16 times 7 out of 15. So how about I highlight that for you? So it is, that is there, 9 over 16 times 7 over 15. And then the other one is those ones, okay? Plus 7 over 16 times 9 out of 15. Okay, and you should get 21 out of 80 plus 21 out of 80, which gives me which gives me 42 over 80, which is simplified. 21 out of 40, or 0.525. Question 29. The table below shows Bob's scores in PDHPE and biology exams, as well as the mean and standard deviation for each subject. Explain whether PDHP or biology was his strongest subject. Show mathematical calculations to support your reasoning. So in this case, I'm going to compare their Z scores. The better the Z score, the better they perform, because that means the further they are away from the average, okay? And vice versa, the lower the Z score, that means the worse that they would have performed, because they are, once again, further away from the average on the downside. So let's have a look at his, just color coordinate these. So let's do his PDHPE. Oh my goodness, PDHPE. Okay, and for a z-score, the z-score is your score minus the average over your standard deviation. Okay, so it is going to be, what did he get in PDH? 65. Oh no, sorry, that's the average. He scored 74. The average is 65, so minus 65 over 4, and we get 2.25. Now for biology, same thing. He scored 84 minus the average, which is 80 over 3, and we get 1.33. Now you look at this and you're like, okay, but he got 84% in biology and 74 in PDH. You might first instinctively think that he did better in biology, but really he actually performed better in PDHPE. He's 2.25 standard deviations away from the average, so he's well and truly above, he's well and truly in the top ranks, of the class. Okay, so he's already above, he's already in the top 5%. So he performed better in PDHPE since his z-score is higher than that of biology. Right, question 30. Ahmed has a credit card with no interest-free period, and he receives a credit card bill at the end of each month. Interest on each purchase is charged at the end of each month at a rate of 26.4% per annum, but compounded daily. From the date of purchase, which is included, and the last day of the month, that's also included. Okay, so on the day that you actually buy something, that price is included. Ahmed's credit card statement for August is shown with the interest charge and closing balance figures missing. Okay, so I've got the statement period is between the 1st to the 30th of August. His opening balance is $0, which means he has nothing owing to begin with. He made a purchase on the 8th of August. So that means the 8th must be included and the 30th is included, which leaves me with 23 days. So I'm looking at 23 days here, and he purchased something for $425. I want to determine the interest and the closing balance. That's what the question is asking for. Oh no, the parts are missing. The question is calculate his minimum payment. Okay, for the month of August. So we've got the minimum payment is $20 or 10% of the closing balance, whichever is greater. So we're going to have to find out what his closing balance is. So regardless, we do have to determine these ones here. Find those out and find 10% of that. Right, so let's find out using the future value formula because it's compounding. Future value is going to be 425 open bracket 1 plus. Now my interest rate is 26.4, but it's over 365 days, percent to the power of 23. So once again, over here, your present value is 425. I should have written this first. My rate is 26.4 over 365%, and my N is 23 days. Okay, I had to change this rate because it's in per annum to per days. Okay, so we've got, plug that in and you get $432.06. Okay, that's how much my closing balance is. If you want, you can determine the interest as well, and that's just subtracting. But right now, I'm only concerned with the closing balance, so I'm not going to go back and find the interest. If I want to know his minimum payment, I need to find out what 10% of $432 is, and it is $43.21. Now, what is larger, $20 or $43? And it's the 43. So you would say, therefore, his minimum payment is $43.21. Question 31. A project requires activities A to G to be completed. The activity chart below shows the immediate prerequisites and duration for each activity. Draw a network diagram illustrating this situation. So we have A and B do not have any immediate prerequisites. That means they are both starters. Okay, so I'm definitely going to start with A and B. And A has a duration of 5 hours and B has a duration of 2. So we'll pop that. Okay. Then we know that for A, let's find out any prerequisites for A, and it's this one here, which is C. So therefore C is going to follow. So C is going to follow here. C is going to follow, so I'm going to cross them off actually instead of circling. So I'll cross those off. A prerequisite for B is D. Sorry, a prerequisite of D is B. So D is going to come out of here and it has a duration of. Okay, now the prerequisite of E is C and D is a prerequisite of F. Okay, so before we do this one, let's draw out that here where F is a prerequisite of 4 for D, okay? And so far, these are my arrowheads, sorry. Now I know that C is a prerequisite of E and E is a prerequisite of F. So if I do this now, okay, so do we see this is E over here? This one comes after C and before F. Yep, that makes sense. And then finally you've got, so I'm going to cross those off now. And now I need G, okay? G, which is 6. Could have made it straight, you can do whatever you want. Okay, draw a network diagram illustrating this. Now it's saying part B, using your diagram determine the minimum completion time of this project. Okay, so I'm going to have to put in my little divided squares and establish the earlier starting time and the later starting time. So for A and B, they're obviously both going to be at 0 and 0. Now at this point here, it's going to start at 5. Let me just draw all my little squares. Okay, this one obviously will be 8. This is 2. Now over here it could be either 6 or 9. So this one here could be 6 or 9. Okay, do you see how it could be either 2 plus 4 or it could be 8 plus 1? With earlier starting time, I always have to pick the larger one, the larger number. So then I have to go with 9. And then, I'm just going to rub that out. And then following here, that's 13 and 19. Sorry, I don't know why I made them so small. Let's do that again. And 19. Okay, so then obviously working backwards, that's 19, 13. Once again, for this position here, it's going to be 13 take away 9, which is 9. Now, up here would be going back 8, 5, and 0. Coming back, that's 5, 3. Cool. Determine the minimum completion time of the project. So it is 19. Is this hours or days? What are we dealing with here? Hours. Okay, for question C, hence or otherwise find the float time for activity D. So let's go to activity D. And it is that one here. So your float time is 5 minus 2, which is 3 hours. Question 32. The time it takes for Alex to drive to work varies inversely with the average speed at which he travels. When Alex travels at an average of 56 kilometers an hour, it takes him 1 hour and 15 minutes to get to work. Let T represent the time taken to drive to work in hours, and let S represent the average speed Alex drives in kilometers per hour. Let K be the constant variation. So that means his time varies inversely. My goodness. Time varies inversely to his speed. Okay, so therefore my time is equal to K over speed. I've been given a condition. I've been told that when his speed is 56. The time is 1 hour and 15 minutes. Now, 1 hour and 15 minutes in hours is 1.25, so 1.25. Okay. I think most students, could make a silly mistake here with the conversion. You can just plug that in on your calculator. This is 75 minutes, and then do 75 divided by 60, and you get 1.25. Okay. So knowing this, we have so 1.25 is equal to K over 56. Therefore, K is equal to 1.25 times 56, which is 70. Oh, sorry, I've done a few steps in one. Okay, so write an equation to represent the relationship in terms of T, S, and K. That's part A. Then part B is hence or otherwise find the value of K. So part B is this purple part here. Question C, plot the curve representing the relationship between T and S on the axis provided. One point of the curve is shown. Draw the curve through correct values for S equals 20, S equals 40, 80, and 100. So let's draw a little table of values here. We have your S and your T. So we want for 20, 40, 80, and 100. When you plug in 20, you would get, and remember your equation is T is equal to 70 over S. 3.5, 1.75, 0.875, and 0.7. Okay, and we've been given that 60 point here, so 20 is at 3.5, which is there. 40 at 1.75. Now each one of these units is going up by 0.2, 0.2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yep. So now for 1.75, that's 0.2, 4, 6, that's over here. 80 is at 0.875, which is, now join those points. And you get this. Okay, so it's an exponential. You need to show that it is curved, okay, and that it actually passes through the points that you draw. Okay, so in this case, you see, I don't really show that it went past that given point, so I'll just go over it again and just make sure it passes through the points. Okay. Just to fix that up. Alrighty. Question 33. The weights of adult carp are normally distributed. The mean weight is 3.6 kilograms and the standard deviation is 0.5 kilograms. A carp has a z-score of minus 1.7. How heavy is the carp? Now remember, your z-score is x minus your average over standard deviation. So we have a z-score of minus 1.7, we have an average of 3.6, and we have a standard deviation of 0.8. So let's just plug that in, and we get minus 1.7 is equal to x minus 3.6 over 0.8. Let's multiply by 0.8, and we get minus 1.7 times 0.8, which is minus 1.36, is equal to x minus 3.6. Let's now bring this over to this side. We're going to add 3.6 and we get x is equal to 2.24 kilograms. What percentage of, in part B, what percentage of adult carp would you expect to weigh more than 4.4 kilograms? Well, I'm going to draw a normal distribution graph just to see what's going on. So I've got the average is 3.6 and I go up by 0.8. So everything there, okay? Now I know that this section here in blue is 50% of my white part here. Okay, now that white section there is that 1 standard deviation away. Remember, 1 standard deviation of my score is 68%. How about I write this here? If I'm 1 standard deviation away, that makes up 68% of my scores. 2 standard deviations away is 95% of my scores. 3 standard deviations away is 99.7%. So being 1 standard deviation away is 68. So for half of that, that's 34%. So I am after 50 minus 34% of my scores, which is 16% of scores. Okay, that's all it wants. It just wants the percentage. Part C, a fisherman is claiming that he caught an adult carp that weighed 7 kilos. Justify why the fisherman's claim is almost certainly false. Okay, well, in my normal distribution table, I've drawn up to 3 standard deviations. Now, 3 standard deviations of data, 3 standard deviations, we should say, includes 99.7% of all data. Let's find out how many z-score 7 kilos is. For your score to be 7 kilos, my z-score is going to be 7 minus 3.6 over 0.8, which is 4.25. Wow, that's even more than 4 standard deviations away. Okay, so what you would say here is an adult carp weighing 7 kilos or more is highly unlikely, considering it's greater than 4 standard deviations away, where 3 standard deviations of your scores is 99.7 of scores. So where 99.7% makes up 3 standard deviations of scores, a carp weighing 7 kilos is more than 4 standard deviations above the mean, making it an almost certainly impossible, false claim. Question 34. Alan purchased a truck for $241,000. After 5 years, its market value is it's just written a bit funny here, $223,500. The value of the truck decreases by a constant amount each year. So that means it declines linearly. What is the annual amount of depreciation? Well, that's really straightforward. I'm just going to find the difference and divide it by 5. Okay, so it's not decreasing at a rate, it's decreasing by an amount. So we're going to do your annual amount is 241,000 minus 223,500 divided by 5. And you get, plug that into your calculator, $3,500 per year. Let T be the number of years after the truck was purchased and V be the value of the truck after T years. Express the situation above as a linear equation. Okay, well, initially it was 241,000 and then it's going to lose 3,500 each year. So that's simply going to be your initial amount. It's how much it's worth, and it's going to lose $3,500 every year. Part C, hence or otherwise, find the value of Alan's truck after T years. Obviously going to use hence, and it's simply going to be using the formula we just established before. T, when T is equal to 11, V is equal to 241,000 minus 3,500 times 11, which gives me $202,500. Those were really easy. Julie is planning to put money aside to save for an overseas trip in 3 years from now. She can afford to contribute $4,200 at the end of each year into an annuity that pays 5.4% per annum compounded annually. How much will she have saved after 3 years? Well, at the end of the first year, so in year 1, she would have put in $4,200 at the end of the year. So she can't actually earn any interest on that because it will not go through a whole year of cycle. So at the end of the first year, she's got $4,200. Year 2 comes along and she now is going to earn interest on this now $4,200. So just imagine it's like December 31st. Okay, it clicks over to January 1st now, and this $4,200 that's sitting in the bank is now going to go through an entire year cycle and accumulate interest. So this $4,200 will now accumulate 5.4%, so the 1 plus 5.4%. Then at the end of the year, she comes along and she makes another contribution of $4,200. This second $4,200 does not accumulate interest in the second year. So now she has got in the bank $8,426.80. So breaking this down, from her own money, she's put in $8,400. But look, at the end of the 2 years, she's made an extra $26.80. So that's what that means. Okay, year 3, she now has the $8,426.80. That's going to go through a cycle of interest. So now this is sitting in the bank. That will accumulate interest. And then I make another $4,200 contribution at the end of the year. So by the end of the 3 years, she now has $13,292.65. Question 36. A map has a scale of 1 to 20,000. 2 schools are 4 centimeters apart on the map. What is the actual distance between the 2 schools? So if I have 1 to 20,000, if I'm 4 centimeters apart, I need to times it by 4. So that's 80,000. So 80,000 centimeters in meters is 800 meters. 2 towns are 4,200 meters apart. How far apart should the towns be on the map in centimeters? So once again, we've got 4,200 meters. I'm going to represent that in centimeters. It's in centimeters. So if I'm going to use the ratio of 1 to 20,000, put an extra 0 by me. I now want to express 420,000, and what is that equivalent to in centimeters on a map? So I asked myself, well, how did 20,000 become 420,000? And that means I needed to multiply by 21. So multiply the other side by 21. So therefore 21 centimeters on the map. Question 37. A field shaded is bordered on one side by a 120-meter road and on the other side a river. Measurements are taken from the road to the river as shown. Find the value of H, okay, which is this length here. Well, the entire length is 120 meters, and I've got 3 equal sub-intervals, so your height is simply 120 divided by 3, so it's 40 meters. That's easy. Use the trapezoidal rule to find an approximation of the area of this field. Okay, so let's break this down into 3. So I'm going to do trapezoidal rule for 3 times. So your approximate area is going to be height over 2, so 40 over 2, open bracket, 50.6 plus 45.8 plus 40 over 2, 45.8 plus 30 plus 40 over 2, 30 plus 32.5. Plug that all into your calculator and you get $4,694 Oh my goodness, square meters, not dollars, 4,694 square meters. Part 38, question 38. In a science experiment, a projectile was thrown from the top of a building. The height of the projectile above the ground was recorded at 1 second intervals. The results are shown in the graph below. What was the height of the building? Well, the height of the building is from where the ball was first released from. So the height of the building is 30 meters. According to the graph, approximately what maximum height above the ground was reached by the projectile? Okay, well, the maximum height occurred here, which is 60 meters. The height in meters of the projectile above the ground at a certain time t and seconds after it was thrown can be modeled by this equation. Use this formula to predict the height of the projectile after 2.5 seconds. Well, let's just plug that in. We get height is equal to 30 plus 29 times 2.5 minus 7 times 2.5 squared. Plug that all in and you get 58.75 meters. Part D, explain why this model is unreliable for values of t which are greater than 5. Well, let's have a look. And when I get to 5 seconds, what's happening here? The ball has hit the ground. Okay, so what relevance does it have for me if I find out, if I put in, t equals 6, t equals 7, t equals 8, on the graph? What relevance does that have to me? I mean, really, what I need to demonstrate is now complete, okay? I cannot have, in this particular scenario, negative values. Okay, so in this case, the reason why it's why this model is unreliable for values greater than t, because the ball hits the ground at t equals 5. You find if you do plug in t equals 6 into that equation, you get a negative value. Once again, that's not relevant for me. I cannot represent a height in negative values. Question 39, we're nearing the end now. 14 people were asked to indicate the time in hours they spent watching television on the previous night. The results are displayed in the dot plot below. Find the mean and population standard deviation of these times. Correct your answers to 1 decimal place. So for your average, I'm going to simply do 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2 times 4. I'm not going to plug that in, plus 3 times 2 plus 4 times 2 plus 5, and that is all over 14. Okay, now obviously I would expect you to do this on the calculator, and I'm going to show that now. So I'm going to put in all the data into my calculator, and then to find the population standard deviation, we get 1.5. Last question. A class is on a hike as part of their PE course. They are given the following directions from the starting point A. They are to walk on a bearing of 62 degrees for 14 kilometers. Okay, so I'm going to mark that on the diagram. That's 62 degrees to a point B. They then continue on a bearing of 136 degrees. So that here is 136. Or we could say this one here is 46 degrees. To point, they then continue, to point C before returning back to point A. Okay, explain why angle ABC is equal to 106. ABC is equal to this one here is equal to 106. Well, I can see, let's call this X for example, I can see that angle ABX is equal to 62 degrees, and that's alternate angles. And then angle CBX is equal to 90 minus 46, which is 34, oh my goodness, 44 degrees. So therefore, angle ABC is equal to 62 plus 44, which is 106 degrees. We've got the explanation there on the side. Part B. Calculate AC, the distance that the class needs to travel on the final section of their height. Give your answer in kilometers corrected to decimal places. So I'm after the length AC here. I'm going to use the cosine rule. So AC squared is equal to 14 squared plus 8.5 squared minus 2 times 14 times 8.5 cos 106. And that would give you 333.852 and so on. But AC on its own is the square root of that, which is 18, and he wants it to 2 decimal places, 0.27 kilometers. Now find the bearing that the class needs to take from point C to point A to return to starting point A to the nearest degree. So I need to find, okay, so I'm here at C. I need to find, let's do it in purple. I need to find that angle there, okay, which would give me my bearing from C to head towards A. Now I already know that this is 18.27 kilometers. This angle here is 54 because of alternate angles, as you can see there. Okay, what else do we know? Okay, so how about we go about finding this angle here, which would give me theta, and then, which I'm just going to call theta, sorry. Then I could actually find this little angle here in blue, which is alternate with this angle. Okay, can you see that Z there? Those two little blues. Okay, so they'd be alternate, which then would give me 270 minus that little angle there. So let's do that. We first said we were going to find this purple theta, and I'm going to use the sine rule, which is going to be sine theta over 8.5 is equal to sine 106 over 18.27. Correct? Yep. Then you've got sine theta is equal to 8.5 sine 106 over 18.27, leaving me with sine theta 0.44722 and so on. So therefore theta, we find the inverse of that, is 26.57 degrees. That means that little blue angle there is 90 minus 62 plus, what did we say it was? 26.57, which is 1.43 degrees. So that means this little angle here is 1.43 degrees, and so therefore my bearing is simply going to be 270 minus that 1.43, which is 268.57 and so on, but it wants it to the nearest degree, so 269 degrees true. Question 41, a set of bivariate data is collected by measuring the length and width of leaves found on a plant. The graph shows a scatter plot of these measurements. The data is also displayed in the table below, which includes the mean and standard deviation. Pearson's correlation coefficient for this data is approximately 0.92. Use your calculator to verify the value of the correlation coefficient by giving your value to 3 decimal places. So I'm going to plug in this data set into my calculator. It'll spit out a number, and we've already been given an indication of what it should give me. Okay, so it should be 0.92 something. Okay, plug that all into your calculator. And you get 0.925. Part B, by using the following formulae and the information provided, find the equation of the least squared line of best fit with values correct to 2 decimal places. Express your equation in the form of y equals gradient times x, so this is, your mx plus b. Now, we can determine our gradient. They're going to give you this, okay? You're not expected to remember it. They will give that to you in the exam. So I've been told in order to determine the gradient, it's my Pearson's correlation coefficient R, which is 0.925, times by the standard deviation of my y-scores over standard deviation of x-scores. And I can get those from here. So how about I color coordinate them? So this standard deviation of my y-scores is this here. And your standard deviation of your x-scores is that one there. Okay, and same thing. This one here represents your average of your y values, and this is your average of your x values. So plugging that all in, it's literally just reading off the data from your from the table above. I've got my gradient is equal to 0.925, that's my Pearson's correlation coefficient, times 1.13 over 1.7. Okay, which gives me 0.61485 and so on. And then my y-intercept, so my b, is equal to the average of my y values, so that is 2.46 minus the gradient, which we just found, so 0.61485, times my average of my x values, which is 5.67. Plug that in and you get minus 1.026 and so on. How does it want it? It wants the values correct to 2 decimal places. So therefore, y is equal to 0.61 minus 1.03. Oh, that's it, minus 1.03. Alright guys, and that's the end of the... Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button because I will be uploading more solutions in the coming days. So keep a lookout for that. If you have any questions about what we do or questions about this exam, please feel free to reach out to me in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button before you go. And also check out our social media pages across all the platforms under Ask Cassie.